Well, howdy everybody, and welcome to our next ferry trip. This is J3, November Charlie 6944 Hotel. This airplane probably looks familiar to you because this is the J3 I took from Tucson, Arizona, up to Durango, Colorado about 3 years ago. And they called me up. Airplane was moving from Birmingham, Alabama, out to Palm Springs, Bermuda Dunes. So I was looking forward to what hopefully was going to be no more than a 5-day trip, possibly as short as a 4-day, because I actually had a little bit of tailwind component pushing me to the west for a lot of this trip. So come along, hope you enjoy it. What your bags look like when you're leaving on a 4-day work trip followed by a 6-day ferry trip. The last leg of the work trip was from Seattle to Dallas and back. And this is the same country I was going to be flying over in that J3 in just a few days. I wonder if those solar panels really are effective. Once the work trip was done, it's unload all the bags, repack all the bags to make sure you have what you need to take for the ferry trip in the right bags. Well, it's Thanksgiving weekend. Alaska Airlines is getting me down to Atlanta, and then I was going to rely on probably Delta to get me into Birmingham, hopefully. Beautiful day leaving Seattle. Nice caps on top of Mount Rainier, though. Of course, it's always nice weather in the Puget Sound when you go to leave. Evening, beautiful skies coming into Atlanta. Apparently there was a big football game in Alabama this weekend. Came off the airplane to see this mascot here. And right over on the other column was the other mascot. Later, I'd fly right by the stadium where that football game took place. My host, Jim Griffith, had a wonderful guest room to stay in, and it's had some pretty famous people in it. A lot of A-12 and SR-71 pilots. And then the North Korean MiG-17 defector, Colonel No Kum-sok, now named Kenneth Rose. Cool photo on the wall. I'm not sure I was worthy of staying in that room. Well, there she was, the old friend. 4-4 Hotel. She looks like she's ready to head to her new home. Start and tack. We had a little hesitation as I powered up there. This is a cold morning in Georgia, and I thought it was just a cold motor. I pulled on some carb heat, was able to come back up to that power band off of the carb heat, so I thought it was just a cold motor and maybe a little bit of carb ice. Because I was able to get full takeoff power, and she climbed out, was flying nice, so we pointed towards the west and didn't think much more of it. One last look at our old home. Cool rock quarry. I love the color of the water down here, and I didn't realize this part of Alabama had oil wells, some coal mines. Shocked to see this massive, what I thought was a warehouse. It's actually the Mercedes factory in Alabama. Look at the size of this thing. And here we are. What's going to be the story for the next 5 days? Who's going faster, me or the cars? This part of Alabama, there's not many places to put the airplane down, so I pretty much am just following the roads all the way west out until at least probably Louisiana or Texas. Remember those inflatable mascots in the airport? Rumor has it this might have been the scene of that football game. There's Bryant-Denny Stadium, home to Roll Tide and over 100,000 of the most voted football fans anywhere. Thing happened when I ferried this airplane a few years ago. On the second leg, the ELT started going off, and this has happened on this first leg again for me. I was able to silence it for a little bit, but I'm making an early landing here so I can shut it off. There's something underneath that seat that is getting short-circuited and causing that ELT to go off. So we're going to get that taken care of and make a few phone calls so that Noah knows that we're safe. You can actually hear the warning horn that lets me know the ELT is activated there. Right, the ELT's been shut off, all the phone calls have been made, it's time to keep making our way west. I find this view kind of entertaining. It's amazing to watch where all my eyes and head movements are during my takeoff roll that you just don't realize you're doing. That camera wiggle is just due to the GoPros mounted on the aileron cables in the top of the cockpit so it can pendulum swing, and that's what you were seeing there. We're cruising by Meridian, Mississippi, a place I used to go into a lot when I was flying on exchange with the Navy. A little bit of a cold snap even for the southeast, and that painter's tape is a good way to seal up the air leaks in any J3. Yep, we're still tracking right down the road and found this cool old abandoned airstrip. I'd love to know the story of it. It gives you a view of what a C85 J3 will perform at. Run along there, 2350, 2400 RPM, 80, 85 mile an hour. Where there's huge crosswalks, but I sure do like it. South of the Class D airspace at Jackson, Mississippi, and I found a bunch of these along the way. Old abandoned NASCAR dirt tracks. This is where some of the old stars got their beginnings. So what happened next was pretty cool. As I was approaching this airport, it ended up being John Bell Williams Airport in Raymond, Mississippi. And I heard somebody in the pattern, they were calling themselves North American something something. Didn't think much of it. It's like, okay, probably a Navion, because you know, a B-25 is probably just going to be a B-25, and usually T6 Texans are called Texans. But as I come down the opposite side of the pattern, I look down and I see this T6 at the fuel ramp. And lo and behold, it's a Titan Airshow Team T6, which used to be the North American Aerobatic Team and then became the Aeroshell T6 Team and then Titans. And in my 19 years of working in the airshow industry, I got to know all these guys and worked a lot of shows with them. Always enjoyed watching them fly at Oshkosh or Sun and Fun. And I knew they were from this general area down here, but I didn't put a whole lot of more thought into it. There was some cool airplanes on the ramp. Got this DC-3 down there as well. So I just continued my way on down towards the Mississippi-Louisiana line. I was approaching Vicksburg. I could see the Mississippi River and New Louisiana was just on the other side. And I looked down to my right, and I started seeing these cool monuments, and I knew it just had to be something, a memorial or a park. And it ended up being the Vicksburg Civil War Memorial Park. And it commemorates the 6 months of the battle in 1863, the Civil War there in Vicksburg. It's got some of the old trenches, it's got some of the canals, some memorial buildings, some original buildings, gun and cannon sites. And there's a national cemetery there with over 18,000 soldiers that have been interned. So I flew a couple circles over the top of it. It was cool to check out, and it would be neat to go see that on the ground. You've never seen the Mississippi River. What sets it apart is the barge traffic. I've never seen such big barges and so many barges that run up and down the Big Muddy. Well, after getting into Louisiana, we were quickly getting into rice country, which meant big flat fields. Saw this old silo along the edge of the levee dike there, the Mississippi, and I had to look down in it and see what I could find. And all of a sudden, it wasn't 2 miles later, I found myself another cool surprise. And that surprise was this really cool southern antebellum style house. And as I flew around it, I looked down in the backyard. Here's a hangar with the Titan T6. This is the one that had to be the one just behind me. So it's like, I don't know whose place it is, but I know whose place it is. So I land on this beautiful grass strip right next to the river, taxi up, and sure enough, it was Steve Gustafson's place. Haven't seen him in years, and he showed me around, got to meet his son, got to meet his grandson. We got to catch up a little bit on the airshow world, and it was just cool to spend that 20, 30 minutes that I wasn't going westbound, and I didn't care. I've spent so many years of just hurrying on these trips. And I just go, you know what? It's time to actually stop and slow down and relax and enjoy them a little bit. Take the advantage of the opportunity to see some friends that you don't always get to see. Check out this beautiful grass strip as I taxi out, turn back around to the west, and get airborne. Funny thing is about that cemetery back in Vicksburg, this levee right next to the runway at Steve's place is the new levee. And the old levee is where thousands of soldiers were buried after the war. And when they went to build the new levee, they went in and they exhumed those bodies and moved them over to Vicksburg. There's a lot of Civil War history within a half mile of where I'm taxiing right now. Well, as we were headed west again, it was out over some open fields. The trees had thinned out, which was really nice. I was right along the freeway. This time, finally, I'm actually making a little better time. There was a wreck up ahead. Luckily, nobody was hurt too bad, it didn't look like. But I was able to scoot over to the side, get straight line the route a little bit. Had great fields to deal with any emergencies, so I was able to drop down a little bit lower, just run along and see some new country out here. It was fun going out across this part of Louisiana. And it wasn't hot and humid and buggy, full of snakes and alligators like the southern part. But I did miss my good Cajun food you get down south. I found myself passing Monroe, Louisiana. I was making good time today. Now I was starting to calculate just how far I thought I might get with the sunshine. This airplane's a day VFR only machine. A couple cowgirls down there working their horses in the arena. It was cool on this approach and landing how you could see my shadow out the open right-hand door. Well, after about 3.5 hours, it was time to stop and land. This was Minden, Louisiana. Nice little fuel stop for us. And as the sun went down, I had to be improvising on what I was using for sunshades. Those sectionals are better at some things than others. I was coming into Longview. I got cleared to land for like 10 miles out. I couldn't see the airport, but I knew it was just north of a lake that I could see out my left-hand side. Physically couldn't see the airport and the runway environment till about a mile out due to the sun straight in my nose. But it was nice. Just taxied up to KRS FBO there, really helpful crew on the ground and in the office as well, getting me hotels and transportation. If you're in the Longview area, I recommend stopping there. And you gotta admit, that is one cool truck. The lights and the fabric and everything else in this place was just top notch as long as you like hot red. Well, hey, I hope everybody enjoyed that first leg of this trip. We left Birmingham, Alabama about 9 o'clock in the morning, made it into Longview, Texas right at sunset. I don't remember the exact hours, but it was somewhere around about 6.5, 7 hours of flying for us that day. And the airplane performed pretty well. Saw lots of neat things, stuff I hadn't seen before, got to see some old friends. I'm glad you guys came along on this journey. Watch for leg 2 be coming out here soon. Jughead's out.